There are moments in life when the outer world is exactly the same, yet the way we see it changes forever. Not because of some huge event, not because of a shattering tragedy, just an ordinary morning when light suddenly falls differently on things we've always called ours. Inside the chest, without a sound, something has cracked. Before we go deeper, let me gently invite you to support Metacita, this small, quiet corner in the digital noise that tries to walk slowly into the inner world with honest tenderness. If journeys like this mean something to you, please subscribe and turn on the bell. It's not a formality. It's a way of helping protect a silence that's becoming rarer every day. You wake up one morning and everything feels slightly off. The coffee tastes the same, the streets look the same, people say the same sentences, but there's a subtle strangeness hanging in the air, like breath being held. The work that once gave you meaning now feels like wearing someone else's mask. Relationships that used to feel warm now feel like talking through thick glass. The identity you've called me for decades begins peeling away from your skin, layer by layer. No blood, no screams, just a silence that keeps getting deeper. You're not clinically depressed, you're not truly broken, but you know, something inside you is dying, and that death is no longer negotiable. This is the threshold of what medieval mystics and, for centuries later, Carl Gustav Jung called by the same name, the dark night of the soul. 1577, Toledo, Spain. A young monk named Juan de Yepes y Alvarez, later known as Saint John of the Cross, is kidnapped in the night by fellow monks who opposed the Carmelite reform. He is beaten, his clothes torn, and thrown into a tiny 3 by 2 meter prison cell with no window, no light. Only a small hole in the ceiling where the waste of other prisoners sometimes fell. For 9 months, he is given nothing but dry bread and water, whipped every Friday in the monastery dining hall in front of the whole community, and left alone with a God who seemed to have abandoned him completely. Yet from that near total erasure of identity, both physical and spiritual, he discovered that the dark night was not divine punishment, but the purest furnace of purification. He wrote that we humans often cling to comfortable spiritual images, beautiful prayers, peaceful meditations, sweet feelings of grace. But for St. John, the journey to God, or to the deepest truth of the soul, does not begin in comfort. It begins when every single handhold is stripped away. From that cell he wrote, using charcoal on scraps of cloth, the words that would shake souls for centuries. If a man wishes to be sure of the road he treads on, he must close his eyes and walk in the dark. For centuries later, a Swiss psychiatrist named Carl Gustav Jung went through the same dark night. No cell, no whip. After breaking with Freud in 1913, he fell into what he called a confrontation with the unconscious. Night after night, he was pulled into floods of visions, dreams, and archetypal images so powerful that he wrote in his private journal, "I was afraid I was going mad." He bought a large red notebook and, for years, filled thousands of pages, later known as the Red Book, recording every brutal encounter with the shadow, the anima, and mythological figures that lived beyond ego control. From that experience, he understood one truth that would become the heart of depth psychology. Only in the darkness can we discover the forms that light refuses to show. The human soul does not grow in bright, controlled rooms. It is only born when the ego is forced to surrender completely, when every defense we spent decades building collapses one by one, not because the soul hates us, but because it loves us too deeply to let us keep living in falsehood. In his masterpiece, The Dark Knight, St. John of the Cross explained that the soul must be drawn through darkness like iron forged in fire. In that darkness, the spiritual ego burns away, the desire to appear holy, the hope for reward, even religious identity itself. For him, the dark night is the moment when the old light is no longer enough, but the new light has not yet been born. St. John distinguished two gates of darkness. First, the night of the senses, when worldly pleasures, habits, even the sweetness of spiritual practice are taken away one by one. Second, the night of the spirit, when the very foundations of the soul are shaken, beliefs, religious identity, even the felt presence of God or meaning in life disappear completely. Jung saw the same phenomenon in psychological language. First, the collapse of the persona, the social mask, then the brutal encounter with the shadow and the collective unconscious. Both arrived at the same conclusion. The old light must die completely so a deeper light can be born. There comes a time when everything we've been holding slips from our hands. The hopes that once gave direction, the identity that once gave safety, the purpose that once gave a reason to get up in the morning. Yet if we dare to walk further into it, not fighting, not looking for shortcuts, we begin to hear another rhythm behind the collapse, a silent order at work, like a womb contracting everything before giving birth. We are twice born, once into the world and once into understanding. Plato. Darkness does not come to destroy. It comes to rearrange. What we call loss is often just space being cleared so something more alive can enter. In the middle of the dark night, ancient emotions rise. Anger we thought long dead, grief we never fully allowed ourselves to mourn, guilt that turns out to still be alive beneath layers of achievement and busyness. They are not enemies. They are messengers from deeper layers of the self that refuse to stay buried alive any longer. This is psychic composting. The old layers of us begin to rot, and the stench is felt in the chest. But the rotting is not the end. It is the beginning of new fertility. Truly, it is in the darkness that God is nearest. Meister Eckhart. How do we cross it without sinking? Not with techniques, not with affirmations, not with instant motivation, but by slowing down until life's pace feels almost painful, by feeling every wave of emotion to its very end without trying to fix it, by crying where no one sees, writing without censorship, walking without destination, sitting in silence until silence itself becomes home. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Carl Jung, Ion. When the light finally returns, and the light always returns, we are no longer the same. We carry home a deep silence, a clarity that needs no explanation, and a strength that no longer depends on anyone's recognition. When the soul reaches the place of nothingness, it finds that it is not nothing, but everything. St. John of the Cross. We emerge from the dark not as shouting victors, but as more whole human beings who know that light and darkness are not enemies. They are two sides of the same process. And if right now your life feels like ashes, know this: you are not broken. You are being born again. Before we close, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been at the point where everything seemed to collapse, only to later open the door to something more honest? Tell me in the comments. Your voice might become a lantern for someone walking in the dark right now. You have walked through the darkness, and from here, everything changes. Welcome back.